What happens when one of the world's biggest superstars walks onto daytime television expecting a celebration, only to find herself cornered under the bright studio lights? Nobody inside the studio that morning expected the conversation to spiral out of control. But within minutes, the tension between Rihanna and Sunny Hostin would turn a routine interview on The View into one of the most uncomfortable celebrity confrontations viewers had seen all year. And before we dive into this explosive moment, make sure you subscribe to the Echo View, hit that like button, and drop a comment below because stories like this only get more intense. The cameras rolled across the cheering audience as Rihanna stepped onto the stage in a sharp dark blazer, layered jewelry catching the studio lights with every movement. The applause was immediate, loud, almost deafening. Whoopi Goldberg smiled from the table, while Joy Behar leaned forward with curiosity already written across her face. Alyssa Farah Griffin shuffled her notes nervously. But Sunny Hostin sat unusually still. That was the first sign something felt off. Rihanna smiled gracefully, waving to the crowd before taking her seat. She looked calm, relaxed, untouchable, the kind of confidence only years of fame could create. But beneath that polished exterior, she was exhausted. The past few months had been brutal. Headlines about her businesses, her personal life, her public image. Every move dissected online. Still, she showed up smiling. Because that's what celebrities are expected to do. The audience settled as Whoopi began warmly. Rihanna, you've built an empire. Music, fashion, beauty, motherhood. People are fascinated by how you balance it all. Rihanna laughed softly. I don't know if I balance it. I just survive it. The audience chuckled. For the first few minutes, everything felt smooth. Safe. They discussed her latest projects, her time away from music, and the pressures of public life. Rihanna answered carefully, occasionally teasing the crowd with vague hints about future songs. Every time she smiled, the audience exploded again. But Sunny Hostin kept watching her. Not admiringly, studying her. Then came the question that changed the atmosphere instantly. Sunny adjusted her posture and looked directly at Rihanna. You've become more than an entertainer, she said carefully. You're a role model to millions of women. But some critics say your public image sometimes sends mixed messages about empowerment and luxury culture during difficult economic times. How do you respond to that? The room shifted. It wasn't just the question. It was the tone. Even the audience seemed unsure whether to clap or stay silent. Rihanna's smile froze for half a second. Not long enough for casual viewers to notice. But everyone at the table noticed. Joy Behar quickly glanced toward Whoopi. Alyssa looked down at her cards. The producers behind the cameras suddenly became alert. Rihanna crossed one leg slowly. Well, she replied calmly, I think women should be allowed to enjoy success without apologizing for it. A few audience members clapped immediately. Sunny nodded but didn't back down. Of course, she replied. But some people feel celebrities promote unattainable lifestyles while ordinary people struggle to pay rent. There it was, the first direct hit. The audience became quiet enough to hear movement backstage. Rihanna tilted her head slightly. So, am I supposed to hide my success to make people comfortable? Sunny's expression remained firm. Not hide it, but maybe recognize the influence that comes with it. The tension thickened instantly. Whoopi attempted to lighten the mood. All right now, we're getting serious early today. The audience laughed nervously. But Rihanna wasn't laughing anymore. Her eyes stayed locked on Sunny. And Sunny refused to look away. You know what's interesting? Rihanna said quietly. People only say this to successful women. Nobody asks billionaires in tech why they own 3 yachts. A louder reaction burst from the crowd. Sunny leaned forward. That's not entirely true. But it happens more to women, Rihanna interrupted, still calm but sharper now. Especially women who look like me. A collective, oh, spread through the audience. Even Joy Behar's eyebrows lifted. Sunny inhaled slowly before answering. I'm not criticizing your success. I'm asking whether celebrity branding sometimes blurs the line between empowerment and consumerism. Rihanna smiled again. But this time it wasn't warm. It was controlled. Dangerously controlled. See, that sounds intellectual, Rihanna replied. But what people really mean is they're uncomfortable when women become too powerful. The crowd erupted with applause. Sunny stayed composed, though her expression tightened slightly. No, she said firmly. People are uncomfortable when influence goes unquestioned. The applause stopped. Now the room felt divided. Rihanna leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing just enough for the cameras to catch it. And who gets to question it? She asked softly. Media hosts? Comment sections? People who profit off discussing celebrities every day. That line hit hard. Very hard. The audience reacted instantly. Some clapped. Others gasped. Joy Behar covered her mouth, trying not to laugh at the sudden directness. Whoopi immediately sensed the conversation slipping into dangerous territory. Okay, she said, smiling tensely. We're not starting a war at 11 a.m. But the war had already started. Sunny folded her hands together. I think accountability matters, Rihanna. That's all I'm saying. And I think selective accountability is interesting, Rihanna fired back. Now the audience fully erupted. The producers backstage began signaling camera operators frantically. Social media producers were already clipping the exchange in real time. Because everyone could feel it. This was becoming television history. Sunny's voice lowered. Selective accountability? Rihanna nodded slowly. Yeah, because every time women build something massive, suddenly there's concern about their influence. But when corporations exploit people quietly behind closed doors, nobody invites CEOs onto daytime television to explain themselves. The applause thundered across the studio. Whoopi stared at the audience, realizing they were now fully on Rihanna's side. Sunny noticed it too, and for the first time all interview, irritation flashed across her face. You're avoiding the point, Sunny said. No, Rihanna replied instantly. I'm expanding it. The audience reacted even louder. At this point, Alyssa Farah Griffin looked visibly uncomfortable. Joy Behar was trying not to grin. Even the camera operators seemed captivated. Sunny's tone sharpened slightly. So you believe public figures shouldn't be questioned? I think public figures are questioned constantly, Rihanna replied. Especially women. Especially black women. Especially successful black women. That sentence landed like thunder inside the studio. The audience exploded into applause so loud it nearly drowned out the hosts completely. Sunny's jaw tightened subtly. Whoopi stepped in again. All right, we're going to take a quick break. But Rihanna suddenly spoke again before the transition. And honestly, she added, her voice calm but cutting, sometimes people confuse tough questions with personal judgment. Dead silence. Sunny blinked slowly. Because everyone understood exactly what Rihanna meant. The camera zoomed toward Sunny for only a second, but it was enough. Her expression shifted from professional confidence to visible annoyance. And in that moment, viewers at home realized this interview was no longer promotional. It had become personal. As the show cut abruptly to commercial, the audience buzzed loudly with shock. Producers rushed onto the stage. One staff member whispered urgently into Sunny's ear while another approached Rihanna with water. But Rihanna didn't look shaken. She looked ready. And backstage, producers were already panicking over what might happen when the cameras came back on. The second the cameras cut to commercial, the atmosphere inside the studio transformed completely. The cheerful daytime energy vanished. Crew members rushed across the floor, whispering into headsets, while audience members leaned over one another, replaying the confrontation in hushed excitement. Phones were already lighting up. Clips from the exchange had started spreading online before the commercial break had even finished. Backstage monitors replayed the moment over and over. Selective accountability. People are uncomfortable when women become too powerful. Sometimes people confuse tough questions with personal judgment. Each line sounded sharper the second time. And everyone knew it. At the host table, Sunny Hostin adjusted her microphone carefully, trying to maintain composure while producers spoke rapidly near the cameras. Her face remained controlled, but tension sat visibly in her shoulders now. A producer leaned down beside her. We need to cool this down after the break. Sunny nodded once. But across the stage, Rihanna looked almost unnervingly calm. She sipped water slowly while a makeup artist touched up her face. The audience watched her carefully, fascinated by how collected she seemed after such an explosive exchange. She wasn't fidgeting, wasn't nervous. If anything, she looked more focused. Joy Behar leaned toward her during the break with a half smile. You know the internet's exploding right now, right? Rihanna smirked faintly. The internet explodes every Tuesday. A few audience members laughed. Even Joy couldn't hold back a grin. But Sunny remained quiet. Whoopi Goldberg noticed everything. She had spent years navigating tense celebrity interviews, political fights, emotional breakdowns live on television. She understood something dangerous was building beneath the surface now. Not yelling. Not chaos. Something colder. More personal. 30 seconds before returning live, the stage manager pointed toward the cameras. Back in 543, the red lights returned instantly. And suddenly everyone was smiling again. Or pretending to. "Welcome back," Whoopi said smoothly. "We're here with Rihanna, and clearly this conversation has everybody paying attention today." The audience laughed nervously. Rihanna smiled politely. Sunny didn't. Whoopi attempted to redirect the conversation toward Rihanna's philanthropy and motherhood. For a few minutes, the interview regained some balance. Rihanna spoke warmly about protecting her children from fame and trying to create a normal environment despite her global celebrity status. The audience softened again. For a moment, it seemed the storm had passed. Then Sunny spoke. "As a mother," she began carefully, "do you ever worry about the example celebrity culture sets for young girls emotionally? Not financially. Emotionally." Rihanna looked toward her immediately. There it was again. Another setup. The room grew quiet. Sunny continued before anyone could interrupt. "Social media creates pressure now that didn't exist years ago. Perfection. Beauty standards. Luxury lifestyles. Constant comparison. Do you ever feel responsible for contributing to that?" A few audience members shifted uncomfortably. Even Whoopi exhaled under her breath. Rihanna's expression hardened slightly. "You mean because I wear makeup?" she asked calmly. Sunny shook her head. "No, I mean because your influence is massive. And influence automatically becomes dangerous when women enjoy themselves publicly?" Rihanna replied. Sunny's patience began thinning. "That's not what I said. But it's what you keep implying." The tension snapped right back into place. Audience members started murmuring again. Sunny leaned forward. "You're taking criticism very personally." Rihanna laughed softly. Not amused. Just disbelieving. "No," she said. "I recognize coded conversations when I hear them." The audience exploded again. Sunny blinked. "Coded?" "Yes," Rihanna replied immediately. "The kind where successful women are expected to explain their existence in a way men never do." Sunny's tone sharpened instantly. "You keep turning this into gender. And you keep pretending it isn't." The crowd reacted louder than before. Whoopi rubbed her forehead slightly. Joy Behar looked like she was watching a live tennis match. Sunny crossed her arms now. "No one is attacking you for being a woman." Rihanna tilted her head slowly. "Really?" The silence after that single word felt suffocating. Rihanna continued calmly. "Because every conversation around powerful women eventually becomes about whether we're too visible, too confident, too rich, too influential, too emotional, too glamorous." Her eyes locked directly onto Sunny's. "Too much." The audience burst into applause. Some people even stood briefly. Sunny's composure cracked for the first time. "You're simplifying legitimate criticism," she said firmly. "And you're dressing judgment up as concern." Rihanna fired back instantly. The studio erupted. Backstage, producers were panicking now. One executive reportedly motioned to shorten the segment entirely. Because this wasn't cooling down. It was escalating faster. Sunny looked stunned for half a second by Rihanna's directness. Then came the moment that changed everything. Sunny lowered her voice and asked carefully, "Do you think fame has insulated you from hearing uncomfortable truths?" The audience gasped immediately. Whoopi looked over sharply. Even Joy whispered, "Oh boy." Rihanna stared at Sunny silently for several seconds. Not angry. Not explosive. Worse. Disappointed. "You know what's interesting?" Rihanna finally said quietly. "People always want successful women to prove humility. Over and over again. No matter how hard we work." Sunny tried to interrupt, but Rihanna continued. "I came from an island nobody expected anything from. I built businesses people laughed at in the beginning. I worked while pregnant. I performed while exhausted. I've been criticized for my body, my voice, my relationships, my parenting, my appearance." Her voice became steadier with every sentence. "And somehow the conversation still becomes whether I deserve what I earned." Thunderous applause exploded across the studio. Sunny sat frozen. Rihanna leaned slightly closer toward the table now. "You call it accountability," she said calmly. "But sometimes women recognize it as something else." Sunny's expression tightened. "And what exactly is that supposed to mean?" Rihanna paused. The audience became completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Then Rihanna delivered the line that would dominate headlines within minutes. "It means powerful women are often asked to apologize simply for taking up space." The crowd absolutely erupted. Cheers. Gasps. Applause so loud the microphones distorted slightly. Whoopi looked stunned. Joy Behar slapped the table in disbelief. Sunny's face hardened immediately. For the first time all interview, she no longer looked like a host guiding a discussion. She looked personally offended. "That's unfair," Sunny said sharply. Rihanna didn't blink. "Is it?" The tension became unbearable. Audience members exchanged looks, unsure whether they were witnessing a talk show or a live emotional collision. Sunny straightened in her chair. "You seem unwilling to accept any criticism whatsoever." Rihanna smiled coldly. "No," she replied. "I just know the difference between criticism and condescension." The audience lost it. Some people stood again clapping wildly. Others covered their mouths in shock. Whoopi immediately jumped in before Sunny could respond. "All right, we are taking another break before this table catches fire." The audience laughed loudly, breaking some of the tension. But Sunny wasn't laughing. And Rihanna wasn't either. As the cameras cut once more, Sunny removed her earpiece sharply while producers rushed toward the table again. One producer could already be heard saying, "Twitter is going insane right now." But the most shocking part? Rihanna still looked perfectly calm. And that terrified everyone backstage far more than yelling ever could. By the time the second commercial break ended, the atmosphere inside the studio felt almost unreal. Audience members weren't whispering anymore. They were waiting for the next line, the next glare, the next moment that would explode across social media before the episode even finished airing. Producers stood frozen behind cameras with anxious expressions while staff members exchanged nervous looks near the stage entrance. Nobody could remember the last time an interview on The View had spiraled this far out of control without someone outright walking off stage. And somehow that possibility suddenly felt very real. The countdown began again. 5, 4, 3. The cameras went live. Whoopi Goldberg immediately tried steering the conversation into safer territory. "We're back with Rihanna," she said with a careful smile. "And we're going to breathe a little now because everybody online is already fighting." The audience laughed loudly. But the laughter faded quickly when the camera cut towards Sunny Hostin. Sunny's posture had changed. She no longer looked curious. She looked determined. And across from her, Rihanna sat perfectly still, one hand resting against the arm of her chair, expression unreadable. Whoopi attempted another pivot. "Rihanna, your fans have waited years for new music. Can you tell us anything?" The audience cheered instantly. Finally, something lighter. Rihanna smiled slightly. "I knew y'all would bring it back to the album eventually." The crowd laughed. For a brief moment, the tension loosened. Then Sunny spoke again. "But that's part of celebrity culture too, isn't it?" she asked. "Fans feeling emotionally connected to people they don't actually know." Several audience members immediately groaned under their breath. Joy Behar glanced sideways, like she couldn't believe they were going there again. Rihanna looked toward Sunny slowly. "What's your point?" she asked calmly. Sunny folded her hands together. "My point is that celebrity influence affects mental health, identity, expectations, especially for younger audiences. And sometimes celebrities benefit financially from emotional attachment." The room became quiet again. Whoopi closed her eyes briefly, like she could already feel the disaster coming. Rihanna nodded once. "Okay," she said. "So now we're blaming entertainers for capitalism?" The audience burst out laughing and applauding. Sunny didn't smile. "I'm saying influence has consequences. And I'm saying people choose what they consume," Rihanna replied instantly. Sunny leaned forward. "Do they? Or are they manipulated by branding and image?" That word hit differently. Manipulated. The audience reacted immediately. Rihanna's eyes narrowed for the first time all interview. "You think my fans are manipulated?" she asked quietly. Sunny hesitated slightly. "I think parasocial relationships are complicated. But you're making it sound like people are brainwashed because they admire someone." Sunny answered carefully. "Admiration can become unhealthy." Rihanna gave a short laugh. "And somehow we're still talking about me like I invented celebrity culture." The applause returned. Louder. Stronger. At this point, the audience had clearly chosen sides. And Sunny could feel it. Her frustration became more visible with every response Rihanna gave. "You seem defensive every time accountability comes up," Sunny said. Rihanna immediately replied, "You seem determined to turn success into something shameful." The audience exploded again. Whoopi interrupted quickly. "Okay, both of you." But Sunny kept going. "No one said shameful." "You keep implying it," Rihanna shot back. Sunny's voice rose slightly now. "Because influence deserves examination. And criticism deserves honesty," Rihanna replied instantly. The tension snapped tighter than ever. Even Joy Behar stopped smiling. This was no longer entertaining. It was becoming deeply personal. Sunny stared directly at Rihanna now. Why does every question become an attack to you? That line changed the energy instantly. The audience quieted. Rihanna blinked slowly, visibly stunned by the wording. Then she leaned back in her chair and let out a small breath. You really want to know? She asked softly. Sunny didn't answer. Rihanna continued anyway. Because women in my position learn very quickly that confidence makes people uncomfortable. Sunny shook her head immediately. That's not what this is. But it is, Rihanna replied. You just package it differently. The audience clapped again, though less enthusiastically now. People could sense the conversation moving somewhere heavier. Rihanna's tone lowered. You're not asking me about music anymore. Or business. Or motherhood. You keep circling back to whether I deserve influence at all. Sunny answered firmly. That's not true. Rihanna leaned forward slightly. Then why does it sound like you need me to apologize for being successful? Dead silence. Sunny opened her mouth, but Rihanna kept going. And honestly, Rihanna added quietly, I've sat through interviews like this my entire career. Sometimes the questions sound polite, but the energy underneath them says something very different. Whoopi immediately noticed Sunny's expression changing. Not irritation anymore. Anger. You're accusing me of bias now? Sunny asked sharply. Rihanna remained calm. I'm saying women recognize judgment when they hear it. Sunny laughed once in disbelief. So now I'm judging women? Rihanna's eyes locked onto hers. No, she replied carefully. I think sometimes successful women are expected to shrink themselves to make other people comfortable. The audience applauded again, but weaker now. The room felt split down the middle. Sunny sat back in her chair, visibly offended. You know what I think, she said. Whoopi immediately looked nervous. Rihanna stayed silent. I think you've gotten so used to admiration that disagreement feels insulting. A loud gasp swept through the audience. Joy Behar whispered, Oh my God! Even producers backstage looked horrified. Because that line crossed into dangerous territory. Rihanna's expression changed instantly. Not explosive. Not emotional. Cold. Ice cold. The kind of calm that usually comes right before someone walks away completely. She stared at Sunny silently for several seconds. Then she spoke. You don't know me. The room froze. Sunny replied quickly. I'm responding to your reactions. No, Rihanna said quietly. You're projecting onto me. The audience erupted again. Sunny shook her head. That's convenient. Rihanna's jaw tightened slightly. You keep speaking about me like I'm some symbol instead of a human being. Sunny fired back immediately. Public figures become symbols whether they want to or not. And media profits from turning them into targets, Rihanna replied. The audience burst into applause once more. At this point, Whoopi looked genuinely stressed. Ladies, she interrupted firmly, we are not doing this for another 10 minutes. But the conversation had completely escaped everyone's control. Sunny turned toward Rihanna one last time. Can I ask you something honestly? Rihanna nodded once. Do you think there's any criticism of you that you would actually accept publicly? The audience went silent again. Rihanna stared at Sunny carefully. Then she gave an answer nobody expected. Yes. Sunny looked surprised. Rihanna continued calmly. But criticism requires respect. And respect disappears when someone enters a conversation already assuming the worst about you. That hit the room like a wave. Because suddenly the fight didn't feel like celebrity drama anymore. It felt personal. Human. Painfully real. Sunny looked caught off guard for the first time all interview. And for a brief second, it seemed like the tension might finally soften. Until one audience member suddenly shouted loudly from the crowd. Leave Rihanna alone. The entire studio erupted into chaos. People laughed. Others clapped. Producers panicked immediately. Sunny looked stunned. Rihanna looked down briefly, almost embarrassed by the audience reaction. But the damage was done. The room had officially turned into a battlefield. And backstage, executives were already discussing whether the final segment should even continue at all. The final commercial break felt less like a pause in a television interview and more like the calm before a collapse. Backstage producers huddled together whispering urgently while network staff stared at trending hashtags climbing across their monitors in real time. Clips from the confrontation between Rihanna and Sunny Hostin were already everywhere. Rihanna destroys Sunny Hostin live. Sunny pushes Rihanna too far. Most uncomfortable moment in daytime TV? Millions of views were piling up by the minute. Inside the studio, the audience buzzed with nervous excitement. Nobody cared about the original interview anymore. Nobody was thinking about albums, businesses, or fashion launches. They were waiting to see whether this ended with peace or disaster. At the host table, Sunny sat unusually quiet now, reviewing notes she clearly no longer intended to use. Her expression remained composed, but the confidence she'd carried earlier had faded into visible frustration. Across from her, Rihanna adjusted the sleeve of her blazer calmly. Still controlled. Still unreadable. Whoopi Goldberg leaned toward both women during the break and quietly muttered, "Can we land this plane without setting the studio on fire?" Joy Behar laughed under her breath. Neither Rihanna nor Sunny did. Then came the countdown. 5, 4, 3. The music faded. The cameras returned. And instantly the tension came rushing back. "Welcome back," Whoopi began carefully. "It's been a very passionate conversation today." The audience laughed nervously. Whoopi continued quickly before anyone else could speak. "I think one thing everybody can agree on is that conversations about fame, influence, success, and public pressure are complicated." Rihanna nodded politely. Sunny folded her hands together. For one brief moment, it looked like the interview might finally end peacefully. Then Sunny spoke one last time. "You know," she said carefully, "I think what's frustrating is that every difficult question today became proof of some larger attack against you." The audience immediately tensed again. Whoopi's eyes widened slightly. Rihanna looked toward Sunny slowly. "And I think," Rihanna replied calmly, "what's frustrating for me is pretending tone doesn't matter." The crowd reacted instantly. Sunny sighed. "So now this is about tone?" "No," Rihanna said quietly. "It's about intent." Silence. Heavy silence. Sunny's patience finally cracked. "With respect, Rihanna, not every disagreement means someone envies you or wants powerful women to fail." Rihanna's expression hardened. "I never said envy. But you implied bias repeatedly." "Because I felt it repeatedly." The audience gasped again. Sunny shook her head sharply. "That's incredibly unfair." Rihanna leaned forward slightly, her voice still calm but emotionally heavier now. "You know what's unfair?" she said softly. "Having to constantly prove you deserve your place in rooms you already earned access to." Thunderous applause exploded across the studio. Some audience members stood immediately. Others shouted support toward Rihanna. Sunny's face tightened. Whoopi tried stepping in again, but Rihanna continued before anyone could stop her. "I've spent my entire career watching successful women get picked apart differently," she said. "If we're confident, we're arrogant. If we defend ourselves, we're difficult. If we stay quiet, people call us fake." The audience clapped louder. "And when women of color succeed," Rihanna added, "the scrutiny becomes microscopic." That line hit hard. Very hard. Sunny immediately replied, "I am a woman of color, Rihanna." The room froze. Complete silence. For the first time all interview, Rihanna paused. Because suddenly the conversation had crossed into something much deeper than celebrity tension. Sunny continued, emotion slipping into her voice now. "That's why this feels insulting. You keep talking like I can't possibly understand scrutiny or bias." The audience looked divided for the first time all afternoon. Some nodded toward Sunny. Others stayed firmly behind Rihanna. Whoopi watched both women carefully, realizing the conversation had stopped being performative. This wasn't television anymore. It was raw emotion. Rihanna's voice softened slightly. "I'm not saying you don't understand it," she replied. "I'm saying sometimes people who survive systems still end up reinforcing them without realizing it." The audience reacted with stunned murmurs. Sunny looked genuinely hurt now. "So now I'm part of the problem?" Rihanna exhaled slowly. "I think media sometimes expects women to break themselves open publicly just to prove they're humble enough to deserve success." The room erupted again. But this time the applause sounded conflicted. Emotional. Messy. Sunny looked away briefly before responding. "You came here expecting celebration," she said quietly. "Not conversation." Rihanna's eyes narrowed slightly. "No," she replied. "I came here expecting fairness." That line shattered the room. Whoopi immediately jumped in before things spiraled further. "Okay," she said firmly. "I think both of you have made your points." But the emotional damage had already been done. Sunny sat back silently, jaw tight. Rihanna looked emotionally drained for the first time all interview. The audience no longer looked entertained. They looked uncomfortable. Because somewhere during the last hour, The spectacle had transformed into something painfully human. Two powerful women talking past each other while millions watched. Whoopi turned toward Rihanna gently. "Before we end," she asked, "what do you hope people take away from this conversation?" The studio became completely silent. Rihanna thought for a moment. Then she answered quietly, "I hope people stop expecting women to apologize for becoming successful." The audience applauded immediately. But Rihanna wasn't finished. "And I hope people remember public figures are human beings too. We feel judgment. We feel disrespect. We feel pressure. Sometimes people think fame turns you into a product instead of a person." The applause grew louder. Even some audience members who had sided with Sunny earlier began clapping. Rihanna looked toward Sunny one final time. "And disagreement is fine," she added softly. "But there's a difference between challenging someone and trying to humble them." The room went dead silent again. Sunny didn't respond. She simply nodded once. Tight, controlled, but clearly emotional. Whoopi quickly wrapped the segment before another explosion could happen. "That's all the time we have today," she announced. "Rihanna, thank you for being here." The applause filled the studio one last time as the cameras pulled back. But the second the show ended, chaos erupted backstage. Producers rushed everywhere. Publicists immediately surrounded Rihanna. Sunny disappeared toward another hallway without speaking to anyone. Audience members pulled out phones, recording reactions while security tried controlling the exits. And online, absolute madness. Clips from the interview dominated social media within hours. Celebrities, influencers, journalists, and fans all took sides. Some praised Rihanna for standing her ground under pressure. Others defended Sunny, arguing she asked legitimate questions that celebrities often avoid. News outlets called it one of the most explosive daytime TV interviews in years. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. TikTok creators dissected every facial expression. Hashtags connected to both women trended worldwide overnight. But one moment above all kept replaying across the internet. "I came here expecting fairness." By midnight, millions of viewers were still debating who crossed the line first. Was Sunny pushing accountability? Or was Rihanna exposing the hidden judgment powerful women face every day? Nobody agreed. And maybe that's why the interview became unforgettable. Because beneath the viral clips and dramatic headlines was something deeper. Two strong personalities colliding live on television while the entire world watched every second unfold. Now we want to hear from you. Did Rihanna completely shut down Sunny Hostin? Or did Sunny ask the hard questions nobody else would ask? Drop your opinion in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Echo View for more explosive celebrity drama, emotional confrontations, and unforgettable Hollywood stories.